Coming to you live from the shadow of the big house, it's IT4U. Tips and tricks on ITS tools, products, services, and more with your host, Gene Mackey.
I mean, we could. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to IT4U. I'm your host, Gene Mackey. And I also have Jamie Croy here, who works on My LINC and is an expert with My LINC. Not to set her up or anything, but she can answer questions that I cannot. Anyway, if you can, thank you. These are interactive webinars brought to you by ITS. If you're having any audio or video problems during the live webinar, let us know in the chat pod. If it's not on our end, we'll have some tips for you. If you're watching the YouTube closed caption version, look in the description and you'll see a link to a Google Doc that's got some resource links that I will also provide in this live session. If you do need an accommodation to participate in our live session, just give us a little bit of heads up and we'll make that happen. Today's episode is My LINC Tips and Tricks, and presenter is yours truly. So, without any further ado, I'll share my screen. Okay. So, here we are with My LINC. It's, you know, back in the day, ITS used to be called Maze. So, it was originally called Maze LINC. So, that's the URL. So, it's got a lot of fabulous stuff in here, lots of resources, courses and documents and web pages, but sometimes it's a little confusing. So we're just going to go over a few things and ask questions, and we will do our best to respond. First of all, what about browsers? So this link is in your Google Doc, but if you go down to recommended browsers on the ITS page, if you're actually authoring an e-learning course, which is how I mostly use My LINC, you need IE10 or prior. The truth is, if you're just viewing stuff, like if you're looking at a web page, you can use pretty much any browser. But if you look, if you go in like Chrome or Firefox and you're in an e-learning course and the text is cut off, that's probably a browser issue. So if you use IE before IE10, that's not going to happen, so that's just something for you to know. And what else could I say here? So you get to the dashboard, and here's a few things. I've saved some favorites, just things that I look at a lot. But let's say I wanted to edit my favorites. I believe I can just go more. And then it brings up my whole list, and let's say I no longer need this Service Link Training Resources wrapper, and I'll just click that and get rid of it, and then go back. Current registration, what have I got happening right now? I've got a web accessibility course that I actually made myself. I have some instructor-led training coming up, so I can see that. But let's see, where am I at with my current registration? So I go in here, and it shows me that it's in progress. So on this page, you know, I could cancel that registration, or I could get into this. This happens to be a course that is not required. So me canceling my registration, or if I want to get back into it, not a big deal. And if I get into it and then I get out of it, have you completed it? No. And then it's going to keep it in my, you know, it tells me a few things like how long was I in there? 9 seconds, not very long. Let's see. So one thing people are sometimes looking for in My LINC is their history, their training transcripts, and that's what gets passed into access and accounts when people are looking at, like, you requested a role and it has some required training. So if I go in here under Learning Activity Reports, I'm not going to do it right now, my training transcript, because I've been around a while, so my transcript's kind of large, but that's where you would find that. All right, so I go back to my learner dashboard. Down here, like I've got a few tasks. What are those? Well, I took a course and I didn't finish the evaluation, so that's under here. What kind of training do I have happening right here? What I'm registered for. Because I teach, that's here too, and what I've recently launched. One thing that happens is that people will ask, why does training show up all of a sudden? And I don't recall doing anything with this training. Well, in the OR system, the online access request system, which is where you would ask for a new role, request a new role, there may be required training. So when you make that request, that training shows up in My LINC. Now, sometimes you might want to get the jump on something. So you've, let's say, just because I do things with the folks in space management, let's say you want this role, this SM survey user, so the annual space survey that comes out about what's going on in all the different locations. So if I search there, right now I'm in the ORS, Online Access Requests. I see that I've got one role. So that's a particular role that gives me access, and it's got some required training. Oh, you know, I could start this training right now, SME 101A, Space Management. So I go back to My LINC, and I go to, and it's predictive search. Sometimes we're moving so fast that you don't give My LINC time to do its predictive searching, but that's actually kind of a handy feature. So when I do the SME and wait for a second, I see that I've got 101A, that's the one I want, so I'm going to click that. And I can register for it. Sometimes it's a little frustrating in terms of which button do I hit, because it seems logical that you could just click this link of the title, but that doesn't get you to a place where you can register. It just tells me a little bit about it, that it's required for a particular role. And I can close that. Now I'm back to my register button. So I'm going to register for it. And then I'll select it. And it's over here, submit it. And then I can start it. So again, a little bit annoying, but just sort of paying attention. I don't want to print it. I don't want to say I'm done. I just want to get started. So I get started, and it tells me a little bit about it. Next, tells me, oh, it's going to take me 90 minutes. And here I am. So again, if I were in here and I'm like, my text is getting cut off, it's probably a browser issue.
There shouldn't be much of that anymore, though.
And Jamie's saying that there shouldn't be much of that. Okay, that's good to know. So let's say I do next, and then I'm like, I'm done. So I exit. So this is an important screen here. This is showing me, like if I had a required assessment, that would show me, oh, there is an assessment down there. Get this thing out of here. And the score, I haven't taken the assessment. It's showing me, what have I done here? Really, I've just done 2% of the course. So this is useful. I click OK, and then when I go back to current registration, it's right there. And if I click on it and start it, it's going to take me back to where I was. All right, I'm going to exit again. And you can see it shows that I've gotten a little further. I'm showing you this because with required courses, people call the service center saying, hey, I passed the assessment. Why am I not being given credit? Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, here's an example of somebody who called the service center and said that very question. You'll see with my arrow over here they did pass the assessment. They need to pass it with 80% or better. Done. But what do we see over here? They kind of skipped through and figured, hey, I could pass the assessment without taking the course, but actually it's set up so they want you to look at every single screen, and they're assuming that you're going to actually read what's on the screen. So for a lot of these required courses, you have to pass the assessment, you have to look at every screen, and you have to exit properly. So you have to be on the very last page of the course and exit from there, otherwise it just doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Okay, now if I go into a course that I've already taken that was required, so like HIPAA, so ITS staff are required to take a HIPAA course every year. What's it show me about that? Well, I could look at my attempt history, right? I attended and I passed. Yay. I could also, so if I go in here, it's going to say, hey, you already did this. Do you want to restart or review? If you just want to like look something up, you really want to review. If you restart it, sometimes, tell me if I'm wrong about this, Jamie, it will say, oh, well, now you have to do the whole thing all over again.
You do have to do the whole thing over again. It is starting a whole new attempt. So it will put that on your transcript if you complete it. If you don't complete it, it'll show as in progress.
And if I do a restart, but then I cancel, does that take care of the problem?
That does. And a new attempt does not impact anything that you've already completed.
Okay. All right, so I'll do next. I'll restart. Here I am in the course. What a great course. I worked in this course. Anyway.
Not to toot your own horn.
Not to toot my own horn, of course. So I'll get out of here, and it's incomplete, but if I go into current registration, here it is, and if I click on it, I can cancel it, and that'll take care of the problem you were talking about, right?
Yep.
Okay, so cancel marked. There I am. All right. So those are some of the main gotchas. Now, what if I'm looking up, what if I just want to see a wrapper? So business objects. When you open up a web page, it's just a wrapper that's got a bunch of other links to web pages. It doesn't matter if you restart or review. It's just that's the message that comes up, and we can't make it go away, but it doesn't matter how you respond. So so here's a wrapper, all the step-by-step procedures and simulations that have to do with business objects. So if I go in here, retrieve and run a report, you'll see that you have an option here, screenshots on or off. So if you want to turn them all on, you can do that. Or if you just want to see one at a time. You know, these used to be PDFs, and we don't do PDFs anymore because PDFs aren't very accessible. Web pages are more accessible for like people using screen readers and other assistive devices. But it's not so obvious how to print. So if I just do a right click and print, that generally works pretty well. So I'm going to get out of that. And what else? Let me stop and see if we have any questions right now.
Can you minus that little window? Minus, not close.
I'm in this wrapper, so I can go back. You can't use the back button very easily, but usually when I'm in a specific procedure, there's a link to the wrapper, or if I just want to get back to My LINC, I can do that. One thing that can also get a little confusing when you're assigned training because you requested a particular role. sometimes people get confused because it's not real clear about the role itself. So I'm going to look up that same role, SM Survey User. And here what we got is the training fours. What's confusing is it's got a button to register, but it's a role. It's not a course. So that's just something. We've made a lot of modifications in My LINC, but that's one we can't quite get rid of.
We're trying.
We're trying.
We're getting close.
That's good to know, Jamie. But if I click on the description for SM Survey User, it tells me the same thing it told me in ORS, which is, hey, here's the required training. So again, this is just a particular access role. It's not a course, but it lists the required training.
And one thing with those is after you've completed the training, ORS will get updated on an hourly basis. And so that will move, once you've completed all the training for a particular role, that will move your request into a processing state. You will still see the role on your to-do section in My LINC, but on a nightly basis that will get cleaned up. So the next day that should drop off.
Yeah, so sometimes people wonder, like, I just finished this, why doesn't it immediately show up? But it's kind of a batch process.
Yep.
All right, let me look at what else I got here. Searching. So you can use a wildcard. You can use an asterisk. So that gives me everything that's got the word HIPAA in it somewhere. Now if I don't use the asterisk, do I get the same thing? It kind of looks that way. If I look at this, over here, I've got a little diploma. So that can be useful. Sometimes I just need to have that in my file or something, so you can export that as a PDF. And it also tells me when I completed it, which means that I've got another year before I need to take this again. Let's go back. What happened? Here we go. Let's say I'm interested. One thing that's cool is that the university is offering a lot of free diversity, equity, inclusion training because of the initiative that we're having right now. So let's see if I look up DEI. What do I get? All right, so let's see. I want to register for unconscious bias in everyday life. Same thing. I'm going to register for it. And it takes me here, and I'm going to pick a particular time frame. Now, sometimes people go in and they're looking for a course, and it's like, why is the year at 2050? That's because there's some courses in here that are as needed. So you go in and you pick that course, and that notifies the instructor or someone who notifies the instructor that you want this. And then they start moving forward on that. So if you see a date that's way in the future, that's probably the situation. Let's take a look at the catalog. So, you know, one way to find things is just by searching. But if you go down here, here's the catalog. Now, you don't have access to all of these, right? It just depends on what you need to do your job. So ITS, if I only have access to the ITS domain and then I try to take something like in Treasury or the College of Pharmacy, I'm not going to be able to. So if it turns out that your job has changed and you need that access, just let us know and let the Service Center know, and they'll make sure that you get access to that domain. But if I go into ITS, now let's say I'm interested in training on using the financial systems. Procurement. What do I got here? So it's just useful, and this looks like a wrapper, procurement resources. Yeah, so that's going to have all kinds of training materials and things like that, and I can get up here, I can get to some e-learning courses related to procurement. So that's useful stuff. And else do I have? How to register, how to cancel. Sometimes you're going to get an email that said, hey, you haven't completed your training. So once you register for training, the clock starts ticking just so you don't register for some e-learning class and completely forget about it. So you'll get an email that'll say, hey, your training registration is going to expire in 15 days. So they just want you to go back and finish the course.
And if you don't, then at 45 days, the system will automatically cancel. And so we have no record, can't go back and retrieve that, so you would have to take the course over again.
So you might want to pay attention to those little warning emails. How to set a favorite. Let me go back to my dashboard here. So that space management course, let's say I'm in a place where I'm going to be looking at that a lot. Just right here, add to favorites. And then that takes me to the whole list, and I can take that moment and say, hey, is there anything I don't want anymore? And actually, I've changed my mind about this, so I'll click it and delete it. Are you sure? Because that's a big decision, right? You know, one thing that I did show here is I gave you links, and I just gave you direct links to some of the My LINC support pages that can be really useful. Like tips and tricks, it's a PDF within My LINC, so you can just click right there. So that's a handy thing. Sometimes you'll deal with pop-up blockers when you're launching a course. You just might have to make some changes in your browser settings. So that's useful info. And if you're having any trouble registering, browser recommendations, just the FAQs. How do I access my transcript? Why do I see a message to restart or review? And you can always contact the ITS Service Center if you have questions. But I met with the ITS Service Center before I scheduled this class, and they're like, here are the things that come up the most in incidents, and here's what we'd like you to address. So that's about what I got. Anybody have any questions for me?
One thing that I'd like to say about the browsers, so really when we went through an upgrade about 1.5 to 2 years ago, I guess it's about 2 years now, and with that upgrade we really broadened our browser ability, where courses are, now you can see them in pretty much any browser, and they should work in any browser. So
so that text cutoff issue really isn't happening.
We have a fix for that, and so we most of the courses we've gone through and fixed. But if you do see a course that has text cutoff, please let us know so we can get that fixed as well.
Cool. I'm just waiting another minute to see if there's any questions. Sometimes I go into completed registrations. But yeah, I've taken a lot of courses. But if I hit more, completed registrations, and hit more. So let's say I'm in I hit restart on a course by mistake, and I want to see, hey, have I already finished that? I go in by complete date. And yeah, I started here in 2001. That was a long time ago, right? A lot of water under the bridge, people. Okay, so it shows me what I just did. Now here's the useful part is if I'm looking for where there's a score. So the customer experience, that's what one of my colleagues has rolled out recently. And I did pass it, and I completed it, and that's good as of February 1st. So that's another place where you can look for this information. Really, I think that's probably about what we got. So if there aren't any questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and